Welcome to Blondes and A Brokerage, and today we are going to talk about short-term rental licensing and just like with the Airbnb craze in general and VRBO and everything, what that can look like for your property. And so there are like a few things when I have clients that are interested in looking at Airbnbs. Every city and county is different for, and I'm figuring this out on my own right now, is different for licensing laws. So like for example, Summit County, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this because it's like a very dramatic shift in their short-term rental market. But they recently came out, like Breckenridge, put an 8-month moratorium on all short-term rental applications. And then they also came down and reduced the amount of short-term rental permits allowed. I want to say it was like 2,800 total,
right?
Something like that,
right?
And they currently have like 3,600 right now,
right?
And then they have a wait list of like 800 plus people. So what that means for you purchasing a property that you want to Airbnb, and keep in mind the short-term rental permit is with the owner, not the house.
Yep.
So it doesn't stay with the property. So what that means is like 800 of those homes have to be sold or not renewed, those licenses not renewed, in order for them to open it back up. And then you've got an 800 person long wait list. So you're talking years and years before you could even like apply for a short-term rental permit, most likely. So this is like a big deal in Summit County right now because that drastically affects property values for these people. And you know, the prices are so high, that's how it becomes affordable to live in Summit County or to own a vacation home in Summit County. And what the conversation I've had with a lot of, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but the conversation I've had with a lot of Summit County realtors is that, you know, it's your property rights that are being affected by these restrictions, and it's your property and you own it and you should be able to do what you want with it. And I think that's definitely one side of the coin. And the other side of it is too, you know, this has made properties so desirable because they're so profitable that, you know, home values have skyrocketed on top of our already like dramatic appreciation.
Yep.
And so people are sitting there like saying like, wait, what about people that work in Summit County? What about people that work at these ski resorts or what these, you know, resorts? Like they can't afford to live here. And so now you have an affordability issue. And that same thing, on the opposite side of that same coin, you have people saying it's not our job to make it affordable for you. All these people have obviously figured out a way to afford it. So it's kind of an issue. And you don't see that as much in the Denver metro area as far as it being as strict.
Right.
But there are definitely still restrictions that you need to be aware of. And like I know Littleton used to allow short-term rentals and now they don't. And Denver, for example, does allow short-term rentals for your primary residence.
Right.
So that could be something where you live in it and you Airbnb it while you're on vacation. Let's say you travel a lot or something. Or you have a house, and this is why I'm such a huge advocate for ADUs, because this is how you make living in Denver affordable. And it takes creativity. And so if you have a home with an ADU, whether that be like a detached unit like a carriage house or an addition or it's a duplex type situation, you can live in one side and Airbnb the other side. And then there are some places that don't allow short-term rentals at all. And so when you're going to purchase a property that's not your primary residence, like you're going to buy it as an investment property, I think you have to be really aware of that. Because you might like look and say, oh, well, short-term rentals are allowed in Denver. And then you purchase a property and it's like, oh, well, only if I live there. And that might not have been your intent, and now you're in a tough situation. So not only do you need to see if they're allowed, but you also need to know the permitting process and what that could look like for you, because it may not exactly be what you think. So it's definitely, I mean, I think Airbnb is one way to be extremely profitable with a property. I think it's a great way to do it. I have friends that live on Airbnb income. They own multiple Airbnbs across the country, and that's their whole income. I think that's great. Another thing to be mindful of too is like the Airbnb and the vacation rental market fluctuates like the real estate market as well. So they saw crazy occupancy rates the last 2 years, and COVID played a huge part in that too.
Huge, yeah.
Because people now had the flexibility to travel more often, and this year occupancy rates are down for Airbnb. So it's cyclical like anything else. So you can't just like go on it counting on numbers that you've seen previously or whatever. And as the amount of Airbnb units increases, obviously then you have your demand spread across all these units. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But yeah, I think it's a great way to make money. You just have to be smart about the way that you do it.
You do, and what we've learned, especially in Summit County, is things have changed on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point with the Summit County, not only have they put in the moratorium, but they've also made listings where you can only purchase if you are a local resident.
Yeah.
And that's where it's becoming that other side of the coin, where people are saying, cool, you're allowing, just these locals to get it, but we can't even afford to live here because of the increase in the appreciation, and now you're doing all of these thirds and fourths of ownerships. But to your point too, not to plug our other fun little Facebook page, but with house hacking, I mean, this comes into play with Airbnb's huge. I mean, being able to buy your principal residence and being able to rent out the other portion of it, or the carriage house or whatever, that's huge. And it is important to do your due diligence, which is, realtors, we're here to do that. But we also use something called AirDNA, which has been, you found that, which was awesome. And it has been such a good tool for not only us to look into stuff for our personal investments, but for our clients to go, okay, so you thought you wanted an Airbnb here, but here are the statistics over the last year of what that's brought. Even just street by street, I mean, there are properties in Denver that are hot for Airbnbs, whereas 2 blocks down, there's no kind of Airbnb income.
Yeah.
And to be clear with short-term rentals, we say Airbnb all the time, but there are VRBOs, there are lots of different platforms that can be used that are going to give you, more income than others. So there's a ton of options. It's just you gotta be smart about it, just like anything in real estate. So.
And then also, you have management companies and what management company you go with, and then cleaning, and I think another point of value too is like, okay, well, let's say you did buy that house in Denver and you can't Airbnb it because it's not your primary residence. Looking at a medium-term rental, like a monthly rental for traveling nurses, for example, or people that need a place to live in the meantime while they find a new home. So you can charge a premium for monthly rentals, especially furnished monthly rentals. And so that might make more sense for someone who isn't interested in dealing with the turnover of an Airbnb, because there are costs associated with that. So that's the conversation you kind of need to have, and especially when you're looking into an Airbnb market, is would it make more sense for me to Airbnb this, or to do medium-term rentals, or even a long-term rental, and knowing that, and the way I look at it is, like when I buy a property, I want to make sure that I can cash flow that property if my primary intention for the property changes. So, like for example, the Denver house, I want to make sure that if for whatever reason I can't Airbnb it, or the licensing laws change or whatever, that I can still make money on it if I have to do long-term. Worst case, long-term tenants. Right. And same thing for like my primary residence in Castle Rock. I want to make sure that when I buy that when I decide to move out of it, that it's still going to cash flow, or at least break even from an investment standpoint. So that's kind of how I look at properties when you're purchasing it, because that's like a foolproof plan, right? Like if I can afford to hold on to it and make money on it, or at least break even, then that to me is a great investment.
That's an asset. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you have any questions regarding Airbnbs or licensing or markets to break into, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.